watching from around the world. We are live from our headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kelly Egiga. Let's get things started now as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Albania rallying for support and weapons. He's attending the second Ukraine Balkan summit this week. Earlier, Albanian Foreign Minister Igli Hassani welcomed the Ukrainian president on social media platform X, saying his arrival is a pivotal moment for fostering bilateral ties and standing in solidarity with Ukraine in its heroic fight against Russia's aggression. President Zelensky is expected to meet with several Balkan leaders from southern Europe in the Albanian capital, Tirana. Mr. Zelensky has also been on a global tour in the recent weeks to secure critical supports for his forces as Ukraine armed forces face shortage of ammunition. On Tuesday, he held talks in Riyadh with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, where he discussed a potential 10-point peace plan and the return of prisoners of war from Russia. Meanwhile, China has praised strong relations with Russia following Foreign Minister Song Wenda's visits to Moscow. Now, China called for both countries to coordinate on security, stability and development in the Asia-Pacific region. Beijing's foreign minister said in a statement which partly reads, China and Russia should play a better role as anchor of stability in the changing circumstances of the century, under the strategic guidance of President Xi Jinping and President Vladimir Putin. Relations between the two countries are at the best period in history, end quote. Although China has refused to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, relations between both countries have remained warm amid the war. And on the front lines, at least 2 civilians have been killed and 1 injured after Russian attacks with guided bombs in the Ukrainian city of Kupiansk. But the head of the regional military administration said the civilians killed were aged 59 and 39. According to officials, more people are assumed to be under the rubble as residential buildings and civil infrastructure were damaged. The rescue operation is ongoing as special services are working on the spot. Meanwhile, a court in southern Russia has jailed a Ukrainian man for more than 11 years after convicting him of espionage. The 57-year-old man, identified as Sergei Kivitsky, was an agent for the Ukrainian military intelligence who was a resident of Melitopol. He was convicted for trying to procure secret missile components for Ukraine. The Moscow court, however, did not say whether he pleaded guilty or not. In 2023, Russia opened 31 espionage cases and 98 treason cases, the highest number since the 1991 fall of the Soviet Union. Well, let's stay with the Kremlin as Russia has promised countermeasures over Sweden's entry into the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. A statement from the Swedish embassy reads that Russia will take countermeasures of a political and military technical nature in order to minimize threats to its national security. It comes as Sweden cleared the final hurdle to become the 32nd member of the alliance after Hungary's parliament ratified the Nordic countries' membership, and Sweden dropped 2 centuries of military non-alignment in applying for NATO membership alongside Finland in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Well, let's get some perspective on this development as expert at the Center for Global Studies Strategy Ukraine joins us live on the program, Dr. Oleni Sigduri. Thank you indeed for agreeing to speak with us here on the program. Put this into context, if you may. The Ukrainian president is in Albania while Ukraine is expecting more and more weapons and military aid from the West. But it appears they're looking to other partners for help in fighting Russia.
Well, Ukraine of course needs more military help from not only the West but the world. So we would be grateful if, I know that Ukrainian leadership also asked for military help from countries of Latin America, where they have some military, some weapons from Soviet Union still. So it's old and could be used by Ukrainians. But there was some success in some countries, was not. So yes, Ukraine needs weapons, but in the Balkan region, Volodymyr Zelensky, he didn't only ask for weapons, he also proposed the leaders of the Western Balkan region to unite the defense capabilities and to produce weapons together, so to unite military capabilities. So this is something more than just a request for weapons, because this Russian war in Ukraine has changed already military doctrines of many countries. Many countries in the world, they watch this war and they adapt their military doctrines according to the developments on the front line. For example, drones. Drones are something like this. Yes, drones. These are something new, and they influence a lot the battlefield. This component is rather new, and it's to produce it as a military component can be a part of cooperation between many countries. Also, Ukraine has already experience in that, and it can contribute to military cooperation. Yeah.
So, Olena, I mean, the Ukrainian president, Mr. Zelensky, welcomed the news about Sweden's membership of NATO and said he looked, Dr. Olena, I mean, he said he looked forward to the day when Ukraine will be accorded the same guidance. But there's a reaction, of course, from the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. He has always said Ukraine joining NATO will make the world more vulnerable, going as far as saying if the West proceeds to add Ukraine to NATO, it will lead to the use of nuclear weapons. So, I mean, this is not a threat to be taken lightly or lightly. What do you think?
Well, we heard threats from Russian leadership and Russian propagandists to use nuclear weapon many times in response to the attack on the Crimean Bridge. There were a lot of attacks also on Russian Black Sea Fleet, and the Crimean Bridge was attacked a few times. And actually today we see that Ukraine managed to create safe grain corridor without participation of without Russian consent and without participation of Ukrainian Western partners. Ukraine managed to do it by its own forces, and Russia hasn't used any nuclear weapon yet. So I think that this is just the empty words of Vladimir Putin. And he himself, with this war, created a situation when previously neutral countries, such as Finland and Sweden, rapidly changed their mind and decided to join NATO because of Russian threat, because Russia behaves itself inappropriately, because Russia started this aggressive war, commits war crimes, kills people. Like it's inappropriate way in the today's world, and it's not like that. Russia started this war in response to NATO threat, but it's vice versa. Countries do not feel themselves safe near Russia.
And Dr. Olena, so in all of what is playing out, do you think that Ukraine could perhaps begin the process of NATO membership under President Zelensky? Is that even a possibility?
Well, I think that there is. Well, it's interesting question actually, because on the one hand, the situation changed in a way that there is strong support of Ukrainian membership in NATO, strong support from Western countries and from Western societies, which hadn't been observed before this war. So the public opinion changed, and the Western citizens right now, they support Ukrainian joining NATO. But right now, still, when this hot war is going on, I think it's unlikely. So there must be some truce or some kind of peace for this movement forward for Ukraine. Yeah, when the war stops, then it's really highly likely that Ukraine will continue its way forward to NATO and will join NATO, because Ukraine changed also. And Ukraine now is the country which has the experience of participation and success in a really hot and full-scale war on the ground. So Ukrainian experience is very valuable. And Ukraine can be a contributor to NATO defense and to European defense.
Yes, I mean, Dr. Olena, I mean, let's even look at the fact that even though Ukraine is willing to become a member of NATO, but NATO itself has been dragging its feet for some time now. They're allowing Finland and Sweden to become members, providing them NATO protection, but Ukraine cannot be accorded the same right. So I wonder perhaps what exactly you make of that. Plus the French president, Emmanuel Macron, just on Tuesday said NATO may have to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. Do you ever see that happening?
We hope for that, actually, because yeah, Ukraine is just the front line of this war that Russia conducts against Europe in general. So Ukraine is just the first country. And because Russia has taken Belarus without any resistance, and Belarus is now a part of Russia, literally. But Russia is being has been very hesitating about committing any aggressive policy towards Baltic countries, though its political rhetoric has been and still is extremely aggressive. So we think that Russia will try to challenge the NATO unity and to challenge the Article 5 of the Washington Treaty. Russia will try to attack somehow, to make some provocation against a NATO country and to see what will happen. So it's just the Russian war against Ukraine is just the beginning, and we hope that our European allies will realize it and will participate in this conflict more actively, because actually it's a war against them. It's a war against the whole European security system. So yeah, we need actually support, not by only military means, but also human support, because human resources of Ukraine is being exhausted. We do not have unlimited number of soldiers that we can send just to this mid-granger. We need either effective weapons to kill Russians on the battlefield, or we need also military support soldiers of our allies on our battlefield. That would be very useful, and hopefully that will happen. Or there can be, if there will be achieved any kind of truce or some kind of peace settlement, we also need some peacekeeping mission on the ground. Peacekeeping mission that will have the mandate to shoot if there are violations from the opposite side. Not just observers that are helpless, but those who really can fight in case there are violations.
Dr. Olena, please allow me squeeze in maybe two questions before I let you go. I mean, because as we consider the issue of NATO membership for Sweden and Finland, when we also look at Russia's invasion of Ukraine, I wonder perhaps what you think is the fate of these two countries.
Sweden and Finland?
Yes, Sweden and Finland, Dr. Elena.
I think they will be okay. I think they will be fine, totally fine, because yeah, they are also in a better geographical position according to, like, in the Russian neighborhood. So the most vulnerable countries and which are the most worried countries, like right now, are 3 Baltic countries and Poland. And also there are some concerns in Norway about possible Russian provocations in Svalbard, on Svalbard or Spitsbergen Island, where there is Russian presence. Yeah, Russia is the most probable possible scenario of Russian provocation is still against the Baltic countries and the Poland, especially this Suwalki corridor, or in the Baltic Sea itself. So we don't know. There are some assumptions about possible scenarios, but nobody knows what Russia will try to do. But about Finland and Sweden, especially about Sweden, I'm more or less
right.
I'm sure that Sweden is fine.
All right, Dr. Olena, just one final question before I let you go. So when the war is over, what do you think would become the future of Ukraine? It's been devastating the past 2 years. When you look at the level of damage done, I think the United Nations says that almost 4 million people have fled from that country. So what exactly is the future for Ukraine after the war, or when and just when the war is over?
Yeah, it depends on in which condition Ukraine will be after this war. But you're absolutely right. Any war is devastating, and this war is especially bad one because Ukrainian infrastructure is being ruined. Ukrainian fertile lands are being poisoned by war. The minefields in Ukraine are probably the biggest in the world right now, and the process of demining will take decades. We don't know yet. We cannot count how much time we will need to recover fully, but what gives us hope is that first people really would like to go back. Many people will go back if there will be peace. There is a very strong commitment from the European Union to participate in the reconstruction of Ukraine, and I think that not only European Union countries will be interested in the reconstruction of Ukraine, but also other countries in the world. So yeah, it depends on when and where the war stops.
And we cannot wait for that to happen, the end of this particular war in Ukraine. It's been 2 years already, but it's a fine place to leave it. Dr. Olena Sigri, thank you indeed, expert at the Center for Global Studies Strategy, join us live from Florence in Italy.
Thank you for the invitation.